Welcome. It's time. It's time to drop in, open up, and receive. It's time to remember. It's time to believe. Let's elicit the beautiful, the good, and the true. It's time for me. It's time for you. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your girl, Jillian Melissa, and my heart skips a beat when I tell you it's time to forgive. It's time to forgive. My ego immediately jumps in. Well, maybe it's time for forgiveness. Maybe if I make it a noun instead of an action verb, it'll be easier. It's a tough pill for me to swallow. This episode, frankly, has been festering, and it's time. We cannot withhold forgiveness any longer, and that's the royal we. But perhaps you too can relate. This episode in some ways reminds me of the It's Time to Love episode because I think similar to love, forgiveness is a concept that we all think we know the definition of, and we think we mean the same thing. If I say, I forgive you, or please forgive me, or do you forgive me? Many of us think we have a common understanding of what we're talking about, and I think most of us are erroneous, or at least we're not syncing up to the other person or party or parties that we're relating to with this forgiveness. And I also think forgiveness is one of the hardest things to do. I know in my own life it has been and continues to be. And in struggling to forgive certain people in my life, I've gone on a deep dive into forgiveness. And so some of this will be a little lecture-y, where I define forgiveness in a way that I think is light-based, God-based, love-based, true. And it might debunk a little bit of what you've thought forgiveness is. It might be incredibly triggering if you're noticing areas where you're withholding forgiveness. But my hope is that it aligns us all to greater levels of forgiveness. And this is a tough one for me, guys. So thanks for bearing with me. I've already had multiple false starts where I've hit record, spoken for somewhere between 2 and 7 minutes, and then stopped myself and just like, nope, that's not it, redo. So this might be clunky and chunky. Thank you for bearing with me. But before we dive into forgiveness, there are a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to address. First, I just want to acknowledge how long it takes me to put out each episode. I always have the intention of getting more episodes out to you more quickly and having a bi-weekly or even weekly cadence, like every Friday, a new episode of It's Time with Jillian Melissa. Wouldn't that be grand? And that's just not what the reality of the experience has been. So I do just want to honor that, call a spade a spade. A couple things going on, not that I'm justifying, I'm sort of just explaining to you in case you think that this stream and this conduit of connection that we've cultivated is not important to me. It's very important to me. One, in terms of the cadence of time, I do think I have a strong internal metronome. If any of you have watched Arrested Development, there's a running joke that the son, George Michael, has such a good sense of time, and he's using his woodblock. Later wants to create an app called Fake Block that's just a woodblock app, and it turns into a whole other thing. But anyway, he also describes being incredibly punctual, and then his family is like, being musical and having good timing playing a percussive instrument is not the same thing as punctuality. And he's like, actually it is. It's being able to properly track time. And so As a dancer and someone who studied a few instruments growing up, I took piano lessons, clarinet. My dad's a drummer. I feel like I've always had a strong internal metronome, and I'm pretty good at gauging how long things are going to take and properly orienting to the cadence of time. But since 2020, time has been different, y'all. Sometimes it moves at a different tempo. If any of you are familiar with, I think it's pronounced hemiola, maybe it's hemiola, where it feels like you're in a different time signature, but you're not. There's just a lot going on with time. So I do personally feel like I am in this energy of just not being able to get it all done. Like I'm behind the ball. And I'm sure that will shift as husband comes through, as other pillars in my life change, as my career shifts, as my home shifts, all the shifts that are unfolding. But right now, I've just been doing the best I can do. And so that's part of it. Just feeling a little bit off with time. And yeah, one of my clients, beautiful client, she is a pelvic floor therapist in New Jersey. And she was telling me, I told one of my patients about your podcast, and she now listens with her husband to the episodes together. It's like, that's so beautiful. And I was telling her, this was many weeks ago, I was trying to put out, it's time to be thankful. It's time to be thankful. It's time for gratitude. Something akin to that, a thankful energy in anticipation of Thanksgiving. And we were teasing of like, yeah, but it'll come out in Thanksgiving 2026 because I can't seem to get these episodes out. So yeah, just owning that. I'm going to try to be better, guys. A brief moment to talk about it's time to be thankful while it's been mentioned, because that's not going to be its own episode. I'm just not grateful enough. I'm just not grateful enough, guys. I'm working on it. I'll get more thankful. No, I am. That's a joke. But just want to remind you, Thanksgiving is not just polite. I'm talking about not the holiday, the experience itself of Thanksgiving, of cultivating a sense of Thanksgiving, of gratitude. Gratitude is spiritual warfare. Let me say it louder. Gratitude is spiritual warfare. Ingratitude blocks your blessings. Gratitude unlocks multiplication. And I also want to remind those of you who have more of a spiritual lens, whether you're in a Christian framework calling it Satan the enemy, whether you're in a New Age framework and you're calling it the darkness, whatever you're working with, those non-light-based paradigms want you to be in bitterness and resentment and anger, right? Satan's only identity seems to be limiting our access to the best of the best. He's the embodiment of envy, jealousy, narcissistic selfishness. When you can embody gratitude, radical gratitude, you're engaging in spiritual warfare. You're defending the light. So I just want to remind us all of that. But yes, I know you guys have been hungry for more content. This is my super long-winded rant that I'm sorry. I also want to tell you, as I'm sure you've sensed, that I really do need to harness and cultivate the energy of whatever the topic is that I'm talking about. And while there's some sort of practical, sometimes I'll be reading books or aggregating notes, have a running Google Doc or Word document of things I want to touch upon in that episode, what I'm also doing behind the scenes is what I would consider spiritual warfare or taking down spell work. So we're going to embark now. I know this is still under the umbrella of housekeeping and we're on line item 1, which is, I'm sorry all the episodes have taken so long, but there are other ones where I'm going to wrap this up. But we do need to talk about spell work in conjunction with this. This is a little inquiry. This will work if you believe in the power of magic and spells. If you believe that someone or something could literally cast a spell over your life, or you could cast spells. This will also work if you don't believe in magic or that other people can constrain your agency. This is just a thought experiment around discovering your limiting beliefs and exploring your unconscious mind and your shadow. So, what if there were these... Ooh, Bubba. You hear that barky bark? Whoa! Bubba Dookie, the spells. All right, we're not going to talk about spells yet. Okay. Oh, he's growling. We're going to just skip to the next line items in our housekeeping, and maybe we'll come back to this later. Wow. Dookie boy experience. All the things I say to him. Okay, second line item, no AI outreach. I am flattered that I am receiving lots of emails of people wanting to be on this podcast. Frankly, I've been shocked because I've only had 2 guests so far, and I don't have a massive following. I don't have yet any brand deals or, like the exposure that someone would receive from popping on here is, it is what it is. Yeah, so I've been shocked that I'm getting all this outreach. However, I'm going to tell you what doesn't delight me. It doesn't delight me when I'm getting AI emails. So I want to be very clear that no emails written by AI will be entertained. If I sense that your email is not from a human, I'm no longer even going to respond. I made the mistake of responding to, it's a real human being. So it's not like a bot that they're trying to get on my podcast. There's a human being that wants to get on my podcast, many human beings that are using AI to blast me with emails. I know you're busy running a successful podcast, but Brent Michael Phillips or Casey, whoever, whatever, all these people, just insert names, would be a delightful match for your program. They do this, they could talk about this, here's their link, here's their this, here's that, blah, blah. And I've been trying to figure out how I know it's written by AI. So I've actually just yesterday sent some of these emails to a buddy who interacts with AI because I don't. So I'm like, can you help me articulate what it is about the syntax or the verbiage or the energy? I'm having a hard time articulating, like, what am I spotting here? So stay tuned, because I do think it's important for us to be able to discern between humanity and artificial conjurings. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to a representative. Like if you're somebody's agent or you're their social media manager, like that's fine. It doesn't have to be the person directly. I'm happy to talk to representation as long as it's human. Yeah, I made the mistake of responding to one of these AI emails, as I just didn't allude to, I actually said, and got back just an automated response that was sort of a mix-up of the first one. Like their first email had 3 paragraphs that had this, this, and this. And then the second email was just sort of an automated rotation. Like it flipped the second and third and changed a few words. But it didn't actually engage with my response. I said, sure, I'm happy to pop on a free this amount of call, 15-minute, blah, blah, blah. Here's a link, blah, whatever I did. And they acted like they didn't receive it, which also is a clue of like, oh, there's not a real intelligence here. But yeah, do not send AI my way. I will not consider you. Okay, third housekeeping item, totally random, although perhaps not random. Engagement nails. This is just a little channeled offering, a little nugget for anyone who would like, this is the ladies out there looking to support your nail health, and particularly those who are in an engagement season. That's how this all started. I met someone who had gotten a gel manicure, and it destroyed their nails. Those manicures can be incredibly harsh. So her nails were peeling and super weak, and her boyfriend was proposing in a matter of weeks. She knew he had the ring. She knew it was happening soon. She was freaking out because she wanted her nails to look nice for that photo moment. So that was how I began sort of channeling the engagement nails energy, and we turned her nails around in 2 weeks. But this is for those of you, those ladies who just want those long, vibrant nails. So I'm just going to offer this to you. Hopefully it serves. This is the formula. This has worked on multiple women in their engagement season. This seems to be the season I'm in, prepping the ladies for their engagement. God willing, may it translate into my life as well. Okay. Nordic Naturals Marine Collagen. I like the strawberry flavor. I put it in my coffee. I know many people don't want to put anything in their coffee to destroy the integrity of that coffee experience, but that's what I've been doing. Nordic Naturals Marine Collagen. Okay. So we need to be ingesting marine collagen. We also need to be ingesting beef liver and black sesame seeds. In terms of on our nails, vitamin E, high quality vitamin E, moisturizing your hands. Makes such a difference moisturizing your nails and your nail beds. Every time you wash your hands, ladies, we are lotioning. We are putting on lotion. And if you're sensitive to your hands being greasy like I am, you're going to hunt for the right hand cream. You're not going to give up. You're not going to give up. Also, this is a little bit extra. I found a phenomenal manicurist, Linda, who I adore, and she uses, love this brand, Farmhouse Fresh, their Marshmallow Melt Shea Butter Balm, and just applies that to the nail. I adore it, but I only do that. I haven't yet purchased that for myself. That's only when I go see her. This is the big one. In between any sort of manicure experience, we're going to be using nail teaks, number 2 and 2+. Okay? We're also going to be noticing how much we're using our hands as tools. Like, oh, I'm opening up this toilet paper package. I'm stabbing my pointer finger in it like I'm using it as a knife to rip open the plastic, or opening mail, or scratching a sticker off a candle or a price tag off a gift, or anytime you're using your fingernails as tools, we're going to stop that right now. We're going to use tools and we're going to protect our nails. I also want you to notice when you're rushing. So maybe you're reaching into your purse and you're rushing to grab your glasses or your phone or lip balm or whatever, and you're allowing your nails to jam into so many other things. A lot of this happens when we're rushing. If you slow down, you might be able to treat your nails as a little bit more precious, okay? And then lastly, we need to embody the fuck off template. Nails, like hair, are very susceptible to the energy of other people. If someone's super envious of me, my nails will get very brittle and weak. Now, there can be thousands of other reasons. Your thyroid, you're malnourished, you need these supplements, there's tons of reasons. But if all of those things are good and my nails are still turning to shit, there's often negative energy coming my way, and I'm allowing myself to take it. I'm letting myself be a doormat. There's this inherent fuck off template that can't be forced, can only be embodied. It's an energy of enough is enough. I can no longer be abused. People who are used to taking crap from other people, or being an energetic doormat, or being overly giving, tolerating abuse, not using your voice, being a people pleaser, not setting boundaries, reclaiming your nail strength can be an energetic byproduct of embodying that energy of, you don't get to take advantage of me. You don't get to speak to me that way. You don't get to treat me that way. You don't get to send these arrows of negativity my way. And I also refuse to harbor resentment. So it's a dance, because the fuck off energy has a little bit of, anger and rage and sort of an outward projection of stay away. Abusers stay away. But it simultaneously comes from a place of love, self-love, and wanting to commune with God. Anything that's abusive takes you off your center, takes you out of light, wounds you, tries to bring you down to victim consciousness. It makes it harder to stay in that stream of the spirit. It just does. And we also don't heal under attack. It's impossible to heal under attack. So anyway, that's my rant about engagement nails. And one more thing I'll say about nails in terms of the fuck off template. And there's more in my Patreon community if you're like, woo, I'm liking this. And I want to talk more about the fuck off template. It might be helpful to consider which of your relationships are transactional. Wow, transactional. Couldn't even say it. Transactional. I'll do this only when you do that. It's like, I'll do a session with you only when you pay me. Reciprocal. I'll do this because you do that. Manipulative. I'll do this so that you do that. And unconditional. I'll do this. I'll do this. Okay, so that concludes the 20-minute housekeeping notes. And I still didn't even circle back to spelling. But we are going to talk about dark magic and spell work if Bubbles allows it. And maybe it won't be today. But now it's actually time to forgive. I've tried to avoid it long enough. Alas, the time is now. It's time to forgive. Oy vey, schmear. Oy vey. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Just Friends with Anna Faris and, is that how you say her name? I used to say Anna Faris and then I was told that was incorrect. And anyway, her. Sorry, girl. And Ryan Reynolds, who I used to love and now don't love so much. Sorry, Ryan. And she sings the song, "Forgiveness is more than saying sorry. I'm sorry. To forgive is divine." She's like in this absurd breathy voice, which I'm trying to imitate. So let's have a glass of wine and have makeup sex until the end of time. There's a whole song about forgiveness, and it is a great song. So check that out. And aside from that, I'm like, yo, what actually is forgiveness? I've told people, I forgive you. What does that actually mean? And so before we talk about what forgiveness is, I want to talk about what forgiveness is not. Because sometimes process of elimination is easier and more streamlined. So let's all take a moment and ask our bodies what we need before we really explore what forgiveness is not. And one thing I do want to say about asking our bodies what we need, that's something I've done, I believe, every single episode. I had immersed myself in a Christian community the last however many months, doesn't really matter. And one thing I noticed within that community is such strong neglect of the flesh because it's taught. And the interpretation that this particular church community was spouting about the Bible was, that God wants you to ignore your flesh. One girl actually said to me, "Beat your flesh into submission," which my buddy he was like, yeah, that's not it. But some people go that far. And I understand to a degree, it's the same thing that I've been teaching in my intuitive development of, releasing the ego, transmuting the lower ego. But this all needs to operate from a place of self-love. And what I noticed is that, yes, of course, a spiritual discipline like fasting neglects the bodily urge to eat in favor of this higher calling. And things like that are praised where you can ignore the flesh or overcome the flesh. And I think this gets taken by many to a distorted degree and turns into embodying self-loathing, which is the antithesis of the purpose. And so I really just want to encourage those of you who are listening and who may even be from and within this community of new friends that I've cultivated, that it is okay to take time and ask your body, what do I need? And if you feel like you need fresh air, it's okay to go take it. And it's okay to go pee right before the meeting starts and be a minute late to the meeting. And like all of these things, you need to listen to your body, and your body offers you intelligence. So part of why it's so imperative that we listen to our bodies, and part of why I'm so adamant about really tuning into my body, is then when another energy confronts mine, I can also get so clear, this is not mine, because I know exactly what my energy in my body feels like, and I know what it needs, and I know who I am. And my body will scream at me when I'm somewhere that I'm not supposed to be. And so attunement to my body offers me intelligence about, yes, this way, no, not that way. And it helps me feel God by properly hydrating and properly nourishing and resting and working out and all the things that my body requests of me. So I just want to remind everyone here, loving your body. If you love God, God made your body. Love what God made. I mean, to me, it's common sense, but I can't spend any more time on it. Okay, did you listen to your body? Did you give it something? See if it needs anything else. Let me take my own advice. BRB. And we're back. 5 things forgiveness is not. Let's do it. I want to be clear. This is my works cited page, that this is coming from, wow. I have so much resistance to forgiving, guys. So I'm going to ask that you forgive me. Haha. Pun intended, not a pun. Just be gracious with me as I wade through this. I am still in real time navigating these lessons, and generally I try to fully embody an energy before I speak to it, which is why a lot of these episodes take so long, and part of what I was going to get to before Bubble started barking his head off, growling as I started talking about spell work. I don't know if his audio doesn't always pick up because I'm sitting so close to the mic, and so I don't know if you guys actually heard that. I'll find out when I listen back to this. But forgiveness is something that is an active chewing for me right now. And so unlike any of the previous episodes where I felt much more on the other side of the energy, speaking about it, already having had it embodied, in this episode, I think you're going to feel me alchemically move into greater forgiveness just in the act of teaching and speaking. But that'll probably mean my throat will constrict a few times and I might flub. So thank you for being gracious with me as I share. So yes, works cited page. This comes from a 27 part series on forgiveness by Brad Hambrick. This is not my work. And so just want to take a moment. We love citing our sources here. Something we love to do. We celebrate that. So some of the time I'll be directly reading from his article, 5 Things Forgiveness Is Not, which is one of the 27 articles. And sometimes I'll be riffing and sharing my own interpretation or thoughts on his words. Hopefully, as always, you'll be able to discern the difference, and I'll try to be as clear as possible when I'm directly quoting his writing. And for me, as I was going through this series, and ironically, someone who I really need to forgive right now is the person who sent me this. Or not ironically, probably super apropos. I share this because as I was reading it, it felt like after I read this and am understanding, I'm in the process of really coming to terms with these 5 things. Somehow it really is helping me situate into, well, then if it's not this and it's not this and it's not this and it's not this, then, oh, it must be this. Because for me, forgiveness has felt kind of elusive. I've bopped around it, and in part, I've avoided it in an effort to maintain my boundaries. So, for example, with Brian, a partner who I loved so much, but also found myself in these toxic cycles with, I would forgive him after he hurt me, and I would equate forgiveness with going back to him. And because I'd forgive him, so then I'd be like, okay, yeah, and then we can just do this again, and then I would get hurt again. And so for a while, I felt like withholding forgiveness created this shield of like, no, I don't forgive you, and therefore I won't step back into relating because this is unforgivable. Where I'm now reminding myself of the truth, and I'm working through it in real time, as you guys know, of actually we can offer forgiveness and also maintain a boundary. We can offer forgiveness and choose not to relate. And the withholding of forgiveness is not where that shield of defense comes from. So I think I've in part been avoiding forgiving out of fear that, oh no, if I forgive him, that's a slippery slope, because then I start recalling fond memories and then I start thinking of him more lovingly. And then 2 shakes of a lamb's tail later, I'm shooting a text and I'm agreeing to something, and then, and then it's back around the merry-go-round. Anywho, I get distracted. The point is, 5 things forgiveness is not, Brad Hambrick. Number 1, forgiveness is not pretending we're not hurt. If we conceive of forgiveness as pretending, then forgiveness is being fake. Forgiveness becomes a synonym for being fake. Now, I wouldn't have written it as it's a synonym. So that's how you know it's not my writing, because it's not. Okay, you get it. Forgive. All right. I'm not going to edit it as I read it out loud. That's not fair. Forgiveness becomes a form of self-imposed silencing. This loss of voice only compounds the painful effect of whatever offense has already been committed against us. So if we're faking like, yeah, it's okay, if someone did something to really hurt you, I forgive you because I'm supposed to, and that's what I'm supposed to say. Of course I forgive you. Dude, I've had so many tough conversations the last 3 weeks, and in all of them, these people were crying in front of me saying, I'm so sorry how I hurt you. And at this point, I was so fed up. And I felt like these apologies were too little too late. That was my energy. Which, again, more on that later. And they all said, I'm sorry. And I said to each of them, I forgive you, in different tones and different intonations. And with differing degrees of fully meaning it. So part of me was lying in one of those conversations. Like, I said it, but I wasn't 100% actually forgiving. And we'll talk more about what does that actually mean, feel like in your body, what are the emotions and thoughts and energies behind that. But right now we're doing process of elimination. So in that moment when I kind of lied of like, yeah, I forgive you. I'm trying to get the energy across. Sure, I forgive you. Like, I forgive you. Yeah, I forgive you because I'm supposed to, because I have to, because that's what I have to say in this moment, I feel like. And because that's what a good person would do. And we're all imperfect, and you hurt me, and maybe someday down the line I'll hurt you. Not like this, though. There's my ego. Like, I wouldn't ever do this to somebody, so it's very hard for me to forgive you, is often the story I embody. Like, this is so cruel and so unusual, and so, like, how could you do this? This feels unforgivable. So in that fakeness, I'm actually suppressing my truth. I'm actually suppressing how I really feel. And that's what Brad Hambrick means by self-imposed silencing. And then again, that silencing, not expressing your true voice, compounds the painful effect of whatever offense has already happened. So I'm already hurting. This person has already hurt me. And now I'm hurting myself more by not fully sort of unleashing how I actually feel about it and just saying, yeah, I forgive you. So that's what it would be if forgiveness becomes synonymous, like he says, for being fake, with being fake. Forgiveness is not pretending we're not hurt. Forgiveness is not pretending we're not hurt. Brad continues, when I say I forgive you, I am not saying things are all better now. I am saying I have decided I will relate to your offense towards me differently. So forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it's the start of a new journey. From his perspective, when you forgive, you're not making a commitment not to hurt. You're making a commitment about what you will do when the hurt flares up. This part's really important. I'm going to take a sip of my blueberry cherry mango creatine-filled smoothie. And yeah, your girl had to get back on the creatine to be strong enough to forgive. Okay. When you forgive, you are not making a commitment not to hurt. You are making a commitment about what you will do with hurt when it flares up. This really slapped for me, and it still slaps. It's slapping me right now. It's part of why I needed my smoothie. My smoothie. So there's the first part of addressing that it's not pretending. It's not artifice. We're not acting. We can't fake it. And then the pretending piece, what are we acting as if we're not hurt? No. That's not forgiveness. I do not want to wake Bubbles up with that sound, but you get the vibe. You can still really hurt. Some of the people that I genuinely forgave these past few weeks in those conversations, I'm still hurting. I'm still reeling from what they did to me. Even in the midst of the forgiveness, I truly can actually forgive. I truly can. But I'm still hurting. And so I think some of us also think, I explained withholding forgiveness because of this fear. And again, we never want to do anything out of fear. So anytime you notice fear is a motivator of anything, it's like ding, 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 ding. This is a limiting belief. This is something to address, or this is a spell. This is not mine. This is not of God. This needs to be looked at. Some people like Jillian Melissa Lebetkin have withheld, last name to be changed very, 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 very soon. Some of us have withheld forgiveness because we fear that it will put us back in the cycle to get harmed again if we forgive. Others of us withhold forgiveness because we feel like we still need to be hurting. So if I were to forgive Brian, if I think forgiveness is about not hurting and committing to, okay, well, I forgive him so it no longer hurts, well, that wound might hurt me the rest of my life. I was thinking about it the other day because I was at my friends Emily and Matt's for dinner, and Emily mentions Brian nearly every time I see her still. And sorry for the tone on my still, Brian. But, I was saying I genuinely pray for him and I think of him fondly. Like I was saying more positive things and she was like, whoa, good on you. And I think when we're not ready to send someone love, when we're like still upset, we think that forgiveness is that button or that lever or that thing that then gets us to not hurt. So either if we're still so deeply hurting, there's this lie that if I forgive, that's the off switch to the hurt. And maybe we're unconsciously not ready to release the hurt. So again, that's not true. When you forgive, you're not making a commitment not to hurt. And so as I was saying all these things about Brian to her, just like, not all these things, a couple of sentences, I'm still hurting. I may be married to another man with children, and part of me may hurt. I don't know how long the hurt of what I experienced within that love affair I don't know how long it'll take, and I don't know what kind of scar it will leave. When my femoral neck shattered and I had emergency hip surgery, they sliced, hopefully I don't vomit when I say this, they sliced, around my IT band, and I still have a scar over a decade later where you can see, Jillian had hip surgery, and that scar might be there no matter how much lymphatic drainage or energy work or massage or special creams or scar remover, Mederma, whatever. Like that may always be there. And it doesn't hurt, luckily, but there's still that imprint, that residue. Forgiveness doesn't just remove that incision, that scar, that wound. And so I'm just reiterating it so much because it feels so key. Forgiveness is simply, not easily, but simply making a commitment about what you will do when that hurt flares up. So this is Jillian territory, no longer what Brad Hambrick has written. When that hurt flares up, when a memory pops up, when I feel sadness or disappointment or disgust, or like, how could you do this to me? Or I did it, whether about whomever, someone who's affronted me, the doctor who prescribed me fentanyl, I could go on in my life, the chiropractor who cracked my neck. Like, I can't even loop them all in. The energy feels so massive. I feel like I've accrued so many people who've done me so dirty in really major ways that genuinely really hurt my life. Forgiveness is a commitment about what I will do with that hurt when it flares up. When I feel those feelings, what am I choosing? What thoughts? What energy am I sending to these people when I think about them? What stories am I telling myself? Am I letting myself just feel the hurt and cry and release it, or swim or dance or scream? Am I dissociating from it and distracting from it? It's interesting, often when we dissociate or distract, we perpetuate that hurt energy sticking around. Sometimes leaning into it, really feeling it, helps us move it out and through. Last time, I'm going to say it. When you forgive, you are not making a commitment not to hurt. You are making a commitment about what you will do with hurt when it flares up. Okay. Next, number 2. Forgiveness is not letting someone off the hook. Come on. No, it ain't. Forgiveness is not letting someone off the hook. And that's the trap I used to fall into. I was describing how I was withholding forgiveness as a defense mode, because as soon as I forgive him, I used to let him off the hook, and I would just jump right in, because I was believing a lie that forgiveness is letting someone off the hook. It's saying, it's all good that you did that. No worries, all good. Brad Hambrick now is referencing God. This is a more sort of religious languaging. I invite you to receive this. When God forgives us, he does not assume we are a finished product. God remains active in our life to remove the sin he forgave. Forgiveness is meant to change us, not leave us as we were. Similarly, when we forgive someone, it is a right. It is a right to expect that this grace will have an impact on them. If someone does not agree about the wrongness and weight of the sin we're forgiving, then the most forgiveness can do is set us free from bitterness and not create relational restoration. He just said a lot there. He just said a whole lot there through my voice. Okay, so it's not letting someone off the hook. Brad describes an example of someone eating your lunch out of the office fridge. Then they offer to buy you lunch, and you say, that's okay, I needed to diet anyway. That's letting someone off the hook, right? They ate your lunch without your consent. Then they're offering to make it up to you. And you go, all good. Many of us think that that's forgiveness. Like, I forgive you for eating it, no worries. Therefore, you don't have to make it up to me. And then he shifts into, God forgiving us of our sin. That we're all going to hurt each other, and we also hurt God. And even as he offers forgiveness, that doesn't mean like, oh, ta-da, they're a perfectly sanctified person, they're a perfectly holy person, they're all set. No, God remains active, and Brad writes, to remove the sin he forgave. He remains active for tons of reasons. The Spirit is always active to help align us to our authentic self, to embody our soul. And so forgiveness actually changes us. So rather than it being like, nah, we're all good, we're set, as if you hadn't even eaten my lunch, that would leave us exactly as we were. Forgiveness is meant to change us. There's an energy of movement there. That's Jillian, not Brad. And then I want to repeat the second part of the paragraph I read. Similarly, when we forgive someone, it is right. I said it is a right, which is interesting because I think it is. But he actually wrote, it is right to expect that this grace will have an impact on them. If someone does not agree about the wrongness and weight of the sin we're forgiving, so if they don't think it was that egregious and they're not really taking the degree of accountability and ownership, then the most forgiveness can do is set us free from bitterness and not create relational restoration. So if they're not really taking ownership of the full weight, we most likely won't restore the relationship. It's not what the forgiveness will yield. But what the forgiveness can do is change us. Set us free from bitterness. Right? When we're not forgiving, there's a part of us that's harboring this bitterness, that's holding on to bitterness, anger. How could you do this to me? I can't forgive you because I'm holding on to this bitterness. And resentment and bitterness are not of God. They're of the enemy. That's a darker energy. That's unconscious wounding. That's not of the light. Okay, number 3. Forgiveness is not making an excuse for someone. Now, this one is interesting because I kind of interpreted that header, that line, differently than what he meant. Brad writes, sometimes we resist forgiving because we do not want to ratify a perceived downgrade in the significance of the offense. Forgiveness is not a downgrade. Forgiveness does not reclassify an offense from a sin to a mistake, where mistakes are excused and sins are forgiven. Okay. I'm going to rewind for a second. When I first read forgiveness is not making an excuse for someone, because that was in bold, and then there's the paragraph that I just referenced. This is a really strong one for me. This one moved the needle a lot for me. Forgiveness is not making an excuse for someone. I read that in bold before I even went down to the body of the paragraph. And what I interpreted and where my mind went is the following. Because of someone's past trauma or their core wounds or limiting beliefs, I can understand why they might act a certain way. If I can really see into a person, or they've shared with me, or I can feel into them, I can track what has motivated this behavior. I could see, oh, they were treated this way as a child from this particular person, so they feel like they need to do that. You can, when you work as a healer, and this is a trap so many healer types fall into, and I do this day after day, year after year, sort of pruning, not sort of, helping people prune their psyche, pruning their consciousness so they let the lies and the deceit and the darkness and the unconscious wounding fall away, and they embody more and more light and become more radiant and more authentically them. It's very easy to understand why someone might hurt someone else. And so because I can understand why this person might have hurt me, I can forgive them. And so that's what I sort of went to when forgiveness is not making an excuse for someone. Because I used to go, well, I could forgive this because I understand they were abused as a kid, or I can forgive this because they were love deprived at this period of their time, and or whatever the sort of excuse that I've made up, excuse being the wound that then makes them not culpable and not responsible. And that's not really what he was talking about, but it feels like it was important for me to share that for someone else who might need to hear that. That forgiveness is not the same as sort of creating a psychological roadmap and justifying the behavior and going, oh, I understand. I think a lot of us feel like that's how we can access forgiveness. That's the inroad. It's like, oh, I could have compassion for the sweet inner child, the real you at 7 or 8 who didn't get quality time with your mom or whatever it was, you know? Forgiveness is not conjuring that causality of like, because you were hurt this way, that's why you did it, and making up a justification that then excuses the behavior. Again, that was my sort of run with that. What Brad is really getting at is we feel like once we say we forgive, that ratifies a perceived downgrade. This one's tough. It's somehow us going, yeah, like that wasn't such an egregious thing. It was actually okay because I'm willing to forgive it. And that's why he says forgiveness does not reclassify an offense from a sin to a mistake, where mistakes are excused and sins are a deeper thing. Hopefully I was clear in that. Perhaps I'm still struggling with that one. Forgiveness actually, rather than demoting something from like, oh yeah, this is not so offensive, it's actually less offensive. If anything, from this framework, an offense reaches the top level of wrongness when it requires forgiveness. When we say, I forgive you, we're actually honoring the depth of the wound, how intense it is, how offensive it is, as opposed to downgrading it. Okay, number 4. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Because we often hear forgive and forget, many of us pair them together. Again, the trap I fell into of, oh, I forgive this person now. Let me just forget what they did to me and act as if it never happened. No. And the phrase forgive and forget makes us believe that forgiving inherently involves forgetting, but just remember they're 2 separate, distinct words. Forgive and forget, not the same thing. Forgiving is not forgetting, and it also doesn't unwrite history. Right? They always say those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Whatever vulnerability true forgiveness brings, which is a tremendous amount, it is not the vulnerability of naivete. It's just not. I'm going to pause there because I have a client. And yeah, I'm sharing some news with her, so I want to get my energy right. And I will drop back in later. And we're back. And we've made it to the 5th thing forgiveness is not. But first, let's recap. 1, forgiveness is not pretending we're not hurt. Again, if we conceive of forgiveness as pretending, then forgiveness is just a posture of being fake, of being artificial. It's not that. 2, forgiveness is not letting someone off the hook. 3, forgiveness is not making an excuse for someone. Excuse in terms of downgrading the significance, or excuse in terms of a reasoning or justification. 4, forgiveness is not forgetting. And that brings us to 5, which I've pretty much looped in, braided in, weaved in throughout. Forgiveness is not necessarily trust or reconciliation. Brad Hambrick writes, "You remember geometry class in high school? You were taught all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares." A similar relationship exists between forgiveness and trust or reconciliation, in that all trust and reconciliation are rooted in forgiveness, but not all forgiveness results in trust and reconciliation. When we say, "I forgive you," I think there's an implicit, implied, things are back to normal now. But often that normal is the very thing that got us hurt. No thank you to that. Brad continues, "In future reflections, we will consider when reconciliation is wise and what trust development looks like after a major offense. For now, all you need to realize is that the decision to forgive and the decision to trust or resume a normal relationship are two different decisions. The first does not necessitate the second. And if you are being pressured to believe that forgiving requires trusting, this is reason to push pause on movement towards reconciliation of that relationship." Come on. So those were Brad's thoughts. I found them helpful. And I've blabbed a lot. I've blabbed about what forgiveness is not. And I'm going to leave you here to figure out what... No, I'm just kidding. And now it's time to pivot. Well, that's a bunch of things that forgiveness is not. Great. But then what is it exactly? Especially if you, like me, thought forgiveness was one of those 5 things, or a multiplicity of other things, one of many other potential options. You know, I'm sure there's 100 things forgiveness is not, thousands of things forgiveness is not. So for me, again, this is just me. This is just my experience and what I'm wading through. And you can hear my voice since I last was on here. It was actually like 10 days ago now. I was like, I'm skedaddling to a client session, and then I did, and then I kept living my life, and then my mom came to visit, and all sorts of things happened. More and more embodiment of forgiveness. And now I've got a little bit of a congested sinus experience, a little nasal. I've got sort of a lump in my throat. So I'm going to be talking more slowly, and perhaps my voice is raspier. Thank you for bearing with me. Life has presented me a lot of moments, as I mentioned earlier, to practice forgiveness. And I've done the best I could from the state of awareness that I was embodying each and every time. And frankly, sometimes my attempts at forgiveness were more denial, right? Like my chiropractor, Dr. Khalsa, who I saw all through Harvard, and then when I went back to work at Harvard, injured me during a manipulation. And when I was seeking treatment for that injury, a lot of people asked me if I was suing him, if I was this, I was that. And I was like, I'm just focused on my healing. I'm just focused on my healing. And I forgive him. It was an accident, right? I'm sure it's a doctor's worst nightmare. My voice is going. I've been waiting days and days and days for my voice to improve, to speak this to you. But it's the last day of the year now. And I really feel compelled to push through, so I'm going to try. I know the symptoms I'm experiencing are just going to get worse until I finish this podcast. So I'm sorry if my voice does not sound as delicious as you're used to. But yeah, I was in this posture of I'm just focused on me, and I forgive. I understand it's their worst nightmare if a chiropractor is manipulating someone and they injure them. That's literally like horrible for them too. So I don't want to cause him more pain by, I forgive him. And that was my narrative, and that's what I believed. And that's what I thought I was doing. But I didn't forgive him, actually. I was harboring so much resentment and anger and just frustration. I'd just gotten healthier and reached a new frontier in terms of what I thought I was capable of. I was like finally working a real job and being an actual adult, and then bam! An injury. And I was fuming. But I told myself that I was forgiving, and I believed it. So, and again, just because you're forgiving doesn't mean you can't be angry, but I share that to try to make it as plain and simple as possible that I really wasn't forgiving him. In fact, I wasn't really forgiving anybody. I was just coming to terms with reality, accepting people for who they were, flawed and all, trying my best to build boundaries that honored the data that I was receiving from people. Like, oh, okay, you're abusive, so I'm going to step away. Or, oh, okay, you seem to lose your bearings and your control of your emotions and fly off the handle when you start drinking alcohol. So if and when you start drinking alcohol, here's what I'm going to do. Or, I just built an adaptive life where I tried my best to, in dodgeball, dip, dive, duck, dodge. I just tried to avoid getting hurt and then do the best I could, cleaning up the mess of all the hurts that had happened. And confronting forgiveness these last few months in a new way has been profound, and I imagine this will become many podcast episodes because it's hard to slam into one. But here we go. Here is my best attempt at what I've learned, a hodgepodge of resources and quotes and experiences that hopefully illuminate for you places where more forgiveness or new levels of forgiveness are available. I'd like to start with a little anecdote. Earlier I mentioned being at my friends Matt and Emily's, and they have such a precious, precocious daughter, Avery, who I was dancing with by the Christmas tree, her little Tony box, whatever. They make the coolest kids' toys now, y'all. So many cool toys. So we're singing and dancing and twirling a Frozen. She's wearing her Frozen nightgown. I'm rocking my leggings, sneaks, t-shirt, and baseball cap. And she insists that I need to be wearing one of her dresses. I attempt to explain to her, you're 2.5 or however old she is, 2 and 10 months, something. Under 3, I think. I'll fact check that. And your dresses are tiny. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. They're not going to fit me. It's so generous. But she was insistent. So she took me upstairs to her room. And, I'd never been upstairs. She takes me up, takes me to her room, to her walk-in closet, stands on her tippy toes, and turns on the light for the closet. And then points at the nightgown and dress and costume options that I have. But as she turned on the light, she was so excited. She really had to stand on her tippy toes, and she really had to reach her little arm up, up, up. And she got it. And she looked at me with such pride. And she goes, "Do you know how to turn on the light? Do you know how to turn on the light?" And in the moment, I was like, "I do. Yeah. I do." And of course, she was referring to the literal light in her closet. But the way she said it was just ringing in my ears. No one's ever asked me if I know how to do that. And there's just something about the, straight shot to spirit that kids embody, and they just say things that just cut right through you, Do you know how to turn on the light? And to me, forgiveness is that simple. It's a choice to turn on the light. It's a choice to turn on the light amidst the darkness, amidst the pain. For me, forgiveness is saying, okay, I've been carrying this density around, this gray muck, this heaviness. And the way I'm carrying it, and it's just too cumbersome. It's too heavy. It's too dark. And I can feel the implications it has on my life. Unforgiveness is darkness. Forgiveness is an active choice to turn on the light and bring God to the wound. It's a surrendering of my need to even have any sort of justice, which I'll step into in a bit. Sometimes I've been hurt so badly, I'm like, I want this person to suffer, or I want them to know how badly they hurt me. I want them to know what a good thing they lost. And that's been very few times I've wanted someone to suffer, but there have been a few times where I'm like, I really want this person to suffer. Most of the time, I'm actually on the flip side where I want the opposite. I want to make them feel better. I'm trying to alleviate their pain. And I described earlier having a conversation with these two women who were apologizing to me. And I said, I forgive you in a sort of fake way that was coming from a place of they were so distraught. They both had told me they're already suicidal. They're already in emotionally very dark places. They're not well. They're leading a program I think they're unfit to lead. I was, in their program. I was a member, or it wasn't their program, but they were one of the group leaders. There are many groups. Anyway, I had such a challenging time that I wound up leaving this program, and it led to a lot of conversations with leadership and with them about how unacceptable things were. And for a while, they just thought I was going to take it, I guess. And, then I went to the top. I said, take me to the people in charge. And I made a stink. And I stood for the light. And I said, no more. And I guess it finally hit them. And they were starting to spiral into self-shame. And, I'm the worst. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. Like, I forgive you. Like, I was just I don't want you guys to suffer. You're already suffering enough. You don't have the emotional regulation tools to handle your current state of suffering, separate and apart from what you've done for me. I'm not trying to tack on the gravity of what you put me through in such a way that it breaks you. So I'm just going to say I forgive you in this moment to try to alleviate your suffering, because I'm watching you suffer. And not only do I feel bad for you and it's making me uncomfortable, and I'm just trying to, frankly, alleviate my own discomfort watching how uncomfortable you are, but more honestly, I don't think you can handle the weight of this. You're already so unwell. And it's really challenging when someone like me comes in and flags like, look at all the things you're doing wrong. And it becomes very obvious. I don't do that on purpose, but somehow my energy seems to do that when I go places. Anyway, surrendering the need for justice and also surrendering the need to really alleviate the other person's suffering. Either side of that coin, it's not about the other person. It's really not. Yes, the other person is the entry point. Although we're going to talk in a little bit about self-forgiveness, because for me, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's actually been easier for me to cultivate little tendrils of forgiveness for other people. But when I've done something wrong, and especially with Bubbles, there have been several moments where Bubbles has eaten poison. He accidentally ate a grape. He ate a sponge. I've had to rush him to the emergency room, pump his stomach, inject him, force him to throw up. But they didn't pump his stomach. They did the latter thing. But they're telling me the options, and I'm freaking out, and I'm hysterical. And, oh, my God, how can I let this happen? I'm the worst mom. I'm about to kill my puppy. How did I do this? Cultivating self-forgiveness has really been an elite challenge for me. But whether it's about the other person or self, the object of our forgiveness, it's not about them. It's not really about the offense. Forgiveness is an internal process. It allows us to continue to live or leave in greater peace. Unforgiveness hardens our heart. It is a true calcification. So the process of forgiveness to me is a thawing. It's a melting. It's like butter on a pan on the stove or chocolate melting. It's taking your bra off at the end of a long day or taking off wet socks. It's relief. It's coming to the fireplace after a long, cold, rainy walk. It's a sip of soup when your throat is sore. It's a hug at the divinely timed perfect moment. Now, if you're here and you're listening to me and you've made it this far and you plowed through and tolerated my, just all my musings, my thoughts, you are probably undergoing a process of sanctification, of some sort of increased light embodiment, where you're becoming more and more like God, where you're embodying more and more light. You're pursuing God. And I just want to say it as plainly as I can. Unforgiveness moves us away from that. Unforgiveness makes us less like a forgiving God, of course. And to quote Carolyn, I don't know why this episode I can't seem to pronounce anybody's name. That's neither here nor there. She writes, "We cling to our wounds as a way to remain in narcissism, to stay in a barrel of self-inflicted pain that gives us permission to remain flawed and afraid. And here's the thing, darkness wants us to stay weak. This is where people choose weakness, choose the dark, because it keeps us hypersensitive and overreactive. Oof. Talk about oof. When we don't forgive, we're clinging to the past. We're tethering ourselves to darker outcomes and we're hardening our hearts. Unforgiveness is an act of darkness. Forgiveness is an act of light. It's truly that simple. It's truly that black or white. Black and white. Oy vey, Jillian, come on. And so if you consider yourself a light worker or a child of God or a star seeder, whatever it is you consider yourself, if you're on team light or you think you're on team light, but you're harboring unforgiveness, then you, my friend, like me, have work to do. Now, this all sounds great in theory. Okay, turn the light on in the wound. But again, what does this mean? I've been struggling for months and months and months, so I've been devouring as much literature and as much content around forgiveness as felt healthy and balanced. And I want to mention, which I'm sure most of you know, but I actually didn't know until a couple of years ago, forgiveness, the term is a financial term. It comes from loan forgiveness, canceling a debt. Financial term in which a lender cancels the borrower's obligation, writes off the debt, provides relief for the borrower. It's a cancellation of the borrower's obligation to repay some or all of the remaining amount owed on a loan. So when we forgive somebody, we're basically saying, again, in this implicit way, I'm no longer owed anything because of this offense. From the powers that be, not even just from this person. And this part gets a little bit delicate, so I'm now going to turn to a genius part in chapter 3 of Supernatural Ways of Royalty, a book I recently devoured. Let's dive in. This is a book by Bill Johnson and Chris Valaton. And it's really a guidebook for, well, if you feel called to read it, you can go read it. It's from a more charismatic Christian framework. For my Jewish fam out there, the book The Sunflower by Simon Wiesenthal is a phenomenal resource for forgiveness, in case you're feeling a bit off-put. However, I proceed. Bill and Chris wrote this book in an effort to awaken the sons and daughters of God whom perhaps have been living in a pauper mindset or as a captive or a prisoner. They write, "Our past can become a prison that perpetuates the bondage of those who raised us. Somehow, we unintentionally reproduce the same destructive culture in ourselves and in those around us." Right? So maybe we were abused as a kid, then we somehow wind up recreating those dynamics. And we tether ourselves to the past, often just in how we react to how we've been harmed. They talk about, I don't know who wrote this chapter, so I'll use he or they. Pronouns! This is neither the time nor the place for that. It is written how many will spend their whole lives trying to not be like a particular parent or to not be like a certain person who abused them in their childhood. However, when we keep something in our imagination like that, even with the attempt of, I don't want to be that way, we often wind up creating it, consciously or unconsciously. When we're reacting to the past instead of responding to the vision, instead of responding to God's call on our life, we tether ourselves to wounding. And so forgiveness is really about thinking in such a way to make ourselves healthy. I do believe forgiveness, like faith, is something that is gifted from Spirit, from God, that is a supernatural thing. And it has to be revealed to you. It's a gift that gets revealed. And so I can do my best to articulate what forgiveness is, what it's not, what it looks like, what it feels like, how it changes my thoughts, metaphors, it's melting chocolate, it's an unbinding, it's freedom, it's a doorway. But ultimately, your own process with forgiveness is going to be a very personal pathway. And so I do encourage you, first and foremost, this is Jillian, not Bill or Chris, Jillian, I encourage you to meditate on, pray about, get still, and ask your body how to find your way to forgiveness. Show me forgiveness. Please, I feel lost. Show me the way. Ask for help. Back to Bill and Chris. They talk about being bound by unforgiveness. Unforgiveness binds us to the past. People waste their lives trying to get even or just hating a particular person. And they explain it's important to forgive those who have sinned against us so we can be free and go on with our lives. And it is certainly crucial to forgive ourselves. They continue talking a bit about bitterness. I love this. There is no container known to man that will hold it. There is no container known to man that will hold bitterness. It always leaks out, often to those we love the most. And so it is a privilege, and it is a divine responsibility of royalty to forgive. Spirit-filled people, we must forgive. If you forgive the sins of any, their sins have been forgiven. If you retain sins, they have also been retained. It's a duty, it's a responsibility, it's a doorway to freedom. Unforgiveness opens the door to tormentors in your life. This is the part that I thought was genius. This is the part that said, yo, you got to talk about chapter 3 on your podcast, girl. Because none of these people are reading this book except maybe Chris. Hey, Chris. Anyway. Captives and prisoners, they describe two different types of people that are held behind bars. Liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners. Prisoners are people the judge sends to prison. It's a court order from the judge of heaven that is required to release them. I'm going to say that again. Prisoners are people the judge sends to prison. It requires a court order from the judge of heaven to release them. Yeah, I'm talking about spiritual warfare too. For those who have their ears all the way on. And maybe turn your ears up right now. Maybe grab a snack, grab a coffee, a matcha. Let's really listen here. Prisoners, therefore, must forgive those who have hurt and abused them in order for God, the ultimate judge, to be justified in calling off the tormentors and releasing them from prison. So this is not just a physical jail I'm talking about. We're talking about spiritual prison where people are held behind bars by tormentors like sickness or depression or fear. Tormentors and the spirit of tormentors show up in so many different ways. The prisoners land themselves in prison because they have opened the door to tormentors through sin and, wait for it, unforgiveness. Unforgiveness can render you a spiritual prisoner. Yeah. So if you hate somebody, if you hate what they did to you, and I've had a lot of hatred in my heart, people who've met me the last 6 years of my life perceive me as a very light and loving, fairy-like, angelic-like energy. That luminosity, that essence was alchemically birthed from a lot of loathing and a lot of hatred and a lot of darkness. Demons have permission to torment you when you harbor unforgiveness. Demons have permission to torment you when you harbor unforgiveness. Hear me. Hear me. Or hear them. This is Bill and Chris. God insists his people forgive each other. And he is not above using the devil as a pawn to help us do it. Our tormentors actually help drive us into forgiveness. They are the way and the means. But harboring unforgiveness invites in tormentors. All sorts of tormentors. Forgiveness means... What does it mean, Jillian? Here we go. I release the need for this person to be punished for what they did to me. I release the need for this person to be punished for what they did to me. Some people want to see punishment in the 3D. Some girls want revenge by, I'm going to get a revenge body and I'm going to post it on Instagram and I'm going to get a hot guy and flaunt it in front and I'm going to make him suffer and I'm going to this and I'm going to date his best friend or I'm going to sleep with his brother or, whatever. Some women I know trying the 4D. I've met some witches who will cast spells after a breakup, like may he lose all his hair and get fat and be depressed and never be able to maintain an erection, like literally casting spells, wanting that punishment. And I've, this is an example, a post-breakup example, you get it. And I've vacillated over the years in those rare occasions where I feel like someone deserves to be punished. And I think I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, and I think I did, my doctor, Dr. Malanga, who had prescribed me the fentanyl, wound up dying a very painful death due to bone cancer. So all these people that he, a chronic pain doctor, prescribed fentanyl, a decade ago, before they had billboards saying fentanyl kills. I didn't know what fentanyl was when it was prescribed to me. I just trusted my doctor. There was a part of me that took this sweet, wow, yeah, you got what you deserved. You killed a lot of people and you died this painful death. I wasn't rooting for that or wishing for that. I truly had surrendered that to God, and God took care of it. Also, again, we're not wishing ill on other people, but want to be honest about honoring shadow and not pretend that I haven't had dark thoughts. But we have to forgive, or the tormentors will torment us, right? So having that urge to want to punish that person, 3D, 4D, 5D, wherever we take it, there's still that part of us that needs to die. Another brilliant point they make is that forgiveness is a restoration of the standard. Yes. Forgiveness restores the standard in our lives. They share a personal anecdote. I think it's Chris, but maybe it's Bill. Story of being unkind to his wife. In front of his kids, he was, lost his temper. The next day, he gathered his family. He asked for forgiveness from all of them, from his wife. He sort of modeled that posture. Then shortly thereafter, one of his teenage sons was being very rude and snarky or sarcastic. And he said, "You can't talk to my wife that way." And the kid says, "Well, you were rude to mom yourself just the other day." And then he countered, "Yes, but you forgave me," right? He asked everyone for forgiveness and they all said yes. His argument is, when you forgave me, you gave away your right to act the same way, because your forgiveness restored me back to the place of honor. I repented, which restored me to the pinnacle, the high place. And if we fail to understand this principle, then the lowest point, the stupidest thing we've ever done, our worst day, becomes our high watermark. As an example, if we were immoral as a teenager, and then we have teenagers ourselves, we won't have the confidence to correct them about foolish choices they're making because maybe we failed ourselves. Failures we have repented of are no longer the standard we must bow to. So when we ask Spirit, and when we ask those we have hurt to forgive us, we are set back up to the high place that God in love has assigned to us. Otherwise, the worst day of our life, our worst actions become the highest place that we have the right to lead others to. The truth is, forgiveness restores the standard of holiness in us and through us. I mentioned two types of people behind bars, prisoners and captives. That was a description of prisoners. Just want to take a moment and also honor the captives. Captives are those who have been captured in battle, and held as prisoners of war. It's not unforgiveness in their heart that puts them in that position, but rather lies that they believe. You become a captive by believing lies, which is why they say the truth sets you free. But if you're interested in that, go check out the book. I really enjoyed it. Supernatural Ways of Royalty. How you feeling, y'all? It's about to be 2026. By the time you're listening to this, it will be 2026. I'm feeling like I do want to start to conclude, even though my forgiveness Google document has about 22 more pages of content. I think we're going to pause there and just conclude. Conclusory thoughts. Forgiveness is a sacred transition. There are weights that once served a purpose that now slow our stride. There are memories that shaped us that now may chain us to a past that the universe, that God, that spirit, that love, that light is calling us to rise from. Say that one more time. There are memories that shaped us that now may chain us to a past God is calling us to rise from. Forgiveness is a declaration of faith. We're submitting the past into the hands of a higher power, into the hands of a Redeemer who knows how to transform it. The new cannot flourish while the old occupies our attention or our heart space. Our hearts must make room. God will not compete for space in a soul crowded by regrets, offenses, false identities, and outdated assignments. God waits until we are willing to surrender. There is no elevation without release. We must make room for peace. Forgiveness is a portal into peace. It is a death, rebirth, and resurrection process. I want to remind us all that surrender is not loss, it's alignment. One of the most difficult burdens to lay down is offense. The unhealed wounds inflicted by others can harden our hearts and blur our vision and distort our whole reality. Forgiveness is not permission for injustice. It is a doorway into freedom. Oh, Baba Dookie. Hey! I know that picked up. It's funny, when I was listening back, I was like, I'm not sure if Bubbles ferociously barking is going to pick up on the mic. It's so loud. It's just that on Zoom calls, people don't hear Bubbles, and he's making a ruckus. But this is not Zoom. Hey, Dookie! Come on, Bubba! Okay, Bubbles has strong sentiments. The unhealed wounds inflicted by others can harden our hearts and blur our vision. Forgiveness is not permission for injustice, but a doorway into freedom. We release those who have wronged us. We're not saying the pain didn't happen. We are declaring this pain will no longer govern my decisions. This pain will no longer poison my future. We allow gratitude to bloom in the soil where bitterness was uprooted. It's freeing ourselves from an energetic tie that's weighing us down. It's a heart opening, it's a spirit humbling, it's a releasing of weight. And there's a piece of hope that's braided into forgiveness. Hope is not a fleeting emotion, nor is it a shallow optimism. You all right, Bubba? Almost done. Hope is not a fleeting emotion, nor a shallow optimism rooted in circumstances. It's a steady anchor of the soul. Hope is firmly grounded in the faithfulness of God. Our hope is not self-made. It's something we receive from the God of hope, who fills us, sustains us, and empowers us to abound, even in seasons of drought. To err is human, to forgive is divine. So as we forgive, we're hoping for better for all parties involved. And we're releasing the trauma. We're releasing the density, the fragments. We're alchemizing them into light. We're saying, I still believe in a God that's good. I still believe in people that are good. And I still believe in myself. I hope this episode supports you. And to anyone listening who thinks, well, maybe she still doesn't forgive me, I can say now, I really, truly do. I love you. Thank you so much for listening to It's Time with Jillian Melissa. If you're feeling like it's time to try a new recipe, time to get off social media, time to fall in love again, or even time to submit to God's timing, it probably is. If you'd like to stay connected, I invite you to check out my Patreon community, patreon.com/Jillian Melissa Intuition, or you can email me at info@JillianMelissaIntuition.com. I would love to connect. I hope this episode was nourishing, and until next time, I love you.